what can this club achieve? Because so far, again, you can't argue, you're certainly on the right track, but so much can change in just 3-4 games.
Two words are very key there, so and far. Then when you put those together, you've got your answer, haven't you? But now Danny and Nicky have the boys they want. I believe the sky's genuinely the limit, to be honest with you, Jack.
I'm keeping that in as well. Right, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast and welcome to another episode of The Interview. I say it's The Interview. I'm going to go really relaxed. It's not really an interview. We're just going to be, if you're watching this, hopefully on a Friday night, I'm thinking of putting this out on a Friday night. You know who we've got. It's Tom, the legend for 4-0 written all over it. Tom, how you doing, mate?
Oh, very well, mate. I'm pleased this is on a Friday. Everyone's getting ready for the weekend now. Lovely.
I know. I just think Friday night, if you're over of age, grab yourself a beer, chill, watch it. If you're not, then definitely don't do that. I can't promote that. I'll get into a lot of trouble. Just grab yourself some water or maybe a cup of tea as well. I got a cup of tea. I don't think we can get away with a beer. I mean, we could, but it's Monday night. It's not quite the same as a Friday night. But anyway, let's get into it. We've done this before. Tom's been on the channel. We did it at the end of last season. We touched on POMPEY. We did our team of the season. This is really relaxed. We've got sort of a two-parter, if you like. This could be 2 episodes. I don't know. It depends how long it's going to be. If you're watching this on Friday, it should be part 1. Part 1 is going to be something is happening at Portsmouth, because something is happening at Portsmouth. We'll come on to that, of course, to Tom, the guru when it comes to POMPEY. And then part 2, our League One sort of, I was going to say reflection, opening month reflection, because we've seen, it's only been 7 games, but we've seen quite a lot in League One and a lot to talk about. So we've got some interesting talking points on that as well, such as the club surprise package of the season, who we've been most impressed by as a football club as well, both on, maybe off the pitch as well, because of course we have had a window since we last spoke, and who's most underwhelmed us as well, because unfortunately there has been some sides that haven't quite started the way they would have wanted to. So lots to delve into. That's more on part 2. So part 1, we're going to be speaking, of course, about Portsmouth. Tom, something's happening at Portsmouth. I know it. You know it. You're watching them every single week. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to 4-0 written all over it, of course, up and down the country with POMPEY this season, as per usual. Where do you think it's going? I mean, it's just going so right. Where do you think it's going so right for POMPEY? Because you look at that league table, second in the league, only not top of the league because of, is it goals scored or is it goal difference? One of the two. You're doing very well.
I think it is.
Is it goal scored? Goal scored. You're doing well. You're doing well. And why is it going so well, Tom? Tell us.
Recruitment, definitely. It's a major area that we've been better at compared to probably our last 3 or 4 transfer windows. So with a lot of POMPEY fans, we've been sat and chatting about it and whatever, and we've been saying it is probably our best transfer window we've had in probably, quite a recent lasting memory. Not just the numbers, but also the talent within the numbers as well. At points during the window, I remember saying that to those around me on the channel and privately regarding how well we've done talent-wise. And although the numbers that we brought in at that point were single figures for our completed deals, now I look back in sort of the higher end of, of how many players we've brought in. 12, including a few loans, is pretty good going, isn't it? From my point of view, even if we'd made 12 transfers that a few of them were bench warmers and a couple were ones for the future or whatever, I still would have been really happy. But the difference maker for me this time around is the fact that 95% of those transfers were made with the view to have them involved in the match day squad week in, week out in the starting 11 for every game. So that's really exciting. In terms of what else has gone right besides the results that obviously speak for themselves, I think you've done a great job in the last month or so on the channel here, mate, chatting about those for POMPEY. So I'm not going to try and do any better than you have, because I don't think I need to. Something else that's gone really well for us in the way of the aforementioned transfers is the way in which they've taken to their respective roles. Sort of Marlon Pack automatically commanding the midfield from the centre of the park, and Tom Larry on a free is proving to be a steal and absolute steal.
Business that.
It is, yeah. And I think also, interestingly, Danny was talking about how it was actually a bit of a worry about whether we were going to get him in the end, and we managed to keep it very quiet. And so that's something, it's a little bit of a kind of flag to say, oh yeah, that's a good point at the window. Owen Dale slotted in perfectly to maybe replace the pace and athleticism void left by Marcus Harness. I would even go as far to say maybe Dale's ability and to read the ball and adapt himself accordingly supersedes what Harness was doing for us. That might be something that's a little bit controversial, but I feel it. And Dane Scarlett, of course, started scoring for fun after already impressing before he started banging them in. Example is the second goal against Peterborough, I would give just over a week ago. The composure and the confidence it takes to receive a ball with pace. He deceives the defender as well, and then he slotted it away before the keeper can even see where it's going. So I'm really confident that we're going to do really well with him and Colby leading the line.
Yeah, I mean, I said it on the roundup you just previously mentioned there, speaking about sort of how we've sort of covered POMPEY, and they quite rightly are one of the games we always pick out. And it's because I look at that side now. I look at that 4-4-2, and we'll come on to the formation in a second because it's very. I think Danny Cowley is actually changing the perception towards a 4-4-2, and that is, I think, really
breaking
exciting.
the stigma.
Exactly. I think as a manager, you want to break the stigma in a lot of ways, obviously always for the positive. And I think Danny Cowley is really doing that with the formation. And what I love about the 4-4-2 at the moment for Pompey, and this, again, you'll know way more about it and how it's being used for Portsmouth compared to how I do. But I do think it looks really well balanced. And when I look at that side, the balance in that 4-4-2 is really impressive. That back line is looking really strong. Again, like you said, that the four you've got across in that midfield, you've got the wide players. And also it allows you to play the likes of Ronan Curtis, Dane Scarlett, Colby Bishop, and Owen Dale, all in the same system. I think when you can do that, again, going forward, you look like a really, really good side. In fact, you're the top goal scorers in the league this season as well. I think you were the same as Peterborough. And then, of course, you outscored Peterborough in the game when you won that game 2-1 in the last one. So, of course, you overtook them. And I think going forward, you do look really, really good. And as well, defensively, you're not bad either. I wanted to say, because we spoke about it at the end of last year, we did sort of like a Portsmouth review, and it was a really interesting podcast. The first time that we actually spoke, and we've sort of been speaking pretty much non-stop since that episode and sort of been speaking through the transfer window and, of course, the start of this season as well.
Can't get enough of you, Jack. That's why.
Exactly. A lot of people find that. I'm joking, of course. And I was going to say, he's probably not. He's probably not. And I was going to say, I've completely. There we go. It was.
Sorry, threw you off.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Again, that's what happens when you don't. This, by the way, this is all being cut in. It's so relaxed. I'm not even going to bother editing it. I'm just going to keep it all in. It's just going to be a really chill one. You actually spoke about how the atmosphere at the football club was really quite. It was quite down. It wasn't what it is certainly now, of course. And you spoke about the windows and how important a good summer transfer window was going to be, because there was a lot of question marks about the recruitment because the director of football was really up in the air. I don't know. I haven't asked you yet. The director of football, did that actually happen?
No, we haven't spoken about this on or off camera. No, it didn't. And it probably doesn't need to now.
Which is interesting.
We've kind of, I think the director of football role was only going to be kind of in terms of transfers, because one of the Roberto Galgiari, I believe is his name, and I might have pronounced that surname wrong. It's definitely Roberto Galga, whatever. Means absolutely nothing to us now because he left on pretty sour grapes in terms of the way in which he went. But anyway, that's a story for another time. He was heavily involved in the recruitment at the football club, and it left Phil Boardman and the other chap who's in recruitment. We've got two of them that do the recruitment. It kind of left them a little bit, I don't know, with a lot of work to do. And it felt like that director of football, we don't need anyone in terms of stadium operations. I think Portsmouth Football Club off the pitch is an incredibly well-oiled unit at the minute, much in large thanks to the owners, Marie, who won't be watching, but gets a special shout out. She's head of safety and operations, and they've got a really good team of security staff or whatever, or pitch staff, groundsmen. It all works together in one nice unit. The head of football was a mainly football operations kind of thing, just to make sure that Danny Cowley, the manager, Andrew Cullen, our CEO, alongside the two guys who do the recruitment, had a little bit of respite in terms of not going 24/7. So what happened was basically, Jack, over the summer, everyone just kind of mucked in, and sort of the four or five of them covered the role that a director of football would bring. And I know directors of football aren't, or sporting operations, whatever you want to call it, aren't completely confined to transfer windows. We know that, and they do more than that, but that was the major thing that we needed to get right. Everything else feels like it's going in the right direction. So that's the director of football update, really.
Yeah, because we spoke about how the window is going to be really significant, and whether or not the director of football is going to be sort of hands-on or not. I mean, in the end, you didn't get a director of football at all. Like you say now, it'd be interesting to see, Tom, if you would say that if you had a really good, or well, I say you have had a really good, if you had a bad window, if you came away with that window quite badly, would you be saying don't really need a director of football? Because I think now it has gone really well, and you have brought in some really good names, and also I think the way that you did it, I think you were really quite aggressive in the market. I thought the timings of the players that came in were really good. You got, Colby Bishop in early, well, not really early, but, early enough, you'd say, for the window. You got him in time for the first game of the season against Sheffield Wednesday. A lot of other players as well. I mean, we could go on, but ultimately the timings of the deals were really, really good. Like I say, to be honest, now you do reflect on a good window. It turns out it's gone quite well. And I think you might look at that a little bit different. I think you do look at that differently now. So I think that is important. I want to touch back onto that 4-4-2 because, of course, we spoke about, and you speak about all the time on 4-0 Sunday Live. You always say about how that 4-4-2 is working really well. And with Dane Scarlett, of course, and Colby Bishop as that two up there at the moment, doing an amazing job and scoring goals in brilliant fashion and good goals as well. Why do you think it's been so effective? Because like I say, there is a bit of a stigma about it. And you said it a second ago, there is a little bit of a negative feeling towards a 4-4-2. It's called old fashioned or whatever you want to call it. You know, it was used quite a long time ago and hasn't seen as much success. You look at, and I know we never could be comparing the likes of, you should never really be comparing your likes to the Premier League sides, but very, very rare do you see a 4-4-2 in the Premier League and in the Championship as well. Why do you think it is being so effective? Because there's no doubt at all a side that are second in the league, playing really good football and scoring a lot of goals. It's clearly working. It's clearly working really well.
It's a formation that we've already mentioned, and I know that you've mentioned not just on here, but tonight you've also mentioned it on previous reviews and episodes that you've done. Some might say it's a little bit dated. A lot of the best teams, as you say, you could argue play with a false nine or like to keep the football high and wide. For us, and you've already mentioned it a couple of minutes ago before we started talking about director of football. Given the complement of players we have, it does just work, and it's important that we play, but important to really note actually that we play a different formation out of possession than we do with the ball at our feet. So against the ball, our game idea is very different, and there is a dichotomy between when we have the ball and when we don't. One of the major factors of success so far is the way in which we press without the ball as a team together as a unit, and very rarely in ones and twos for pressing. It's always a cohort that go and press. Pressing from the front is the way that Danny and Nicky like to do it. And then once we have the ball back, which is large part of the top end of the pitch in terms of in an attacking sense, to be able to quickly switch to a 4-4-2 in that split second moment is knowing the way that we know our roles is deadly, and has been the case on several occasions, results in a goal that, and sometimes it results in a goal when we're slightly under the cosh, maybe a team's equalised, or you're having a little bit of pressure, and then you get that moment, you get that attack, and then it goes behind for a goal kick and nothing comes of it. From that goal kick, right, can we win the ball back, and can we try and sustain something here? So that's what I'd say with regards to formation. But you're quite right, it's I would dispute the claim. Some might say it's outdated, because I don't think it is, because football's been around for hundreds of years, isn't it? And there's all different ways of styles of playing it, but it does seem to be something that's out of fashion these days, and I'd be interested to see if it can take us out of a league like League One. Let's see.
How much do you give it is personnel? Because I think when we speak about the system of a 4-4-2, I think people go, it's a 4-4-2, you've got 4 defenders, you've got 4 midfielders, and you've got 2 strikers, and the aim is lump it up to 2 big men up front. That's the stigma. Whether that's true or not, which it clearly isn't. POMPEY are completely suggesting that it's not the case, and you can watch it. Dane Scarlett is not somebody really that you lump it up to and he holds at the ball and about to go. He can do that, but he's more of a getting behind type of striker as well, more of an advanced forward, if you like. Colby Bishop as well. Colby Bishop, not as I'd say Dane, not they actually complement each other really well, because they're definitely not the type of not the same type of striker, but it certainly isn't that. So I think actually we talk about systems, talk about formations. To an extent, you could probably play you could probably play an endless amount of formations if the personnel's right, and if they can fit the system, like you say, there you've got 2 really good wide players in Ronan Curtis and Dale. You've got a really, really good strike force of Scarlett and Colby Bishop. You get all of those in the same team. That personnel sort of overrides the actual system itself as well. And you've got a really good balance in that midfield as well with Marlon Pack. And I want to speak about Marlon Pack actually, because he was your first summer signing. Am I right in saying that? The goalie was second, wasn't it? Was he the first summer signing?
Probably.
Yeah, I think it was really early, because remember you did a video on it. It was really early in the window.
It was.
And I think when it got announced, I actually remember you watching the video on it, and you were really, really, really excited about it. And I think that was because he played for you before, didn't he? He played for you before.
Very briefly, he did, yes.
Briefly.
Very briefly.
And I'm not going to lie, I study League One, I study the Championship. I love football, generally. I just love watching football, but I hadn't heard a lot about Marlon Pack. But of course, I knew he played in the Championship for Cardiff, and he played, other football clubs as well. POMPEY briefly, like you say there. How important has Marlon Pack been? Because you were really excited when he first signed. It's all about, everyone can get excited when a signing's announced and when a signing comes through the door. When he comes into a side, plays like you say in this system, and he's doing a really good job. How does that feel now? Because he looks to be someone who's actually revolutionised that midfield and looks to be such a key figure in that system with Danny Cowley and POMPEY.
22nd of June, if you want to be exact. That's the date they signed. But yeah, it's good when you get someone who comes to a club with Championship pedigree there is always a little bit of a feeling in the back of your mind. You're thinking, is he past it? Has he lost his pace? Has he lost
got
his
a bad
legs?
injury record?
Has he got a bad injury record? Has he got a dodgy knee or whatever? That's definite. Well, touch wood. It's definitely not the case with Marlon Pack. I've never really seen him for 2 months or so. But he is one of those players that is every single time you see him, he is 100%. Like there is not a bad. Marlon Pack has not had a bad day. I'll be honest with you. I think his worst game not against us. His worst game for us. Good job he's not against us. His worst game for us was against Peterborough United about a week or so ago. And he just placed a pass once or twice. He placed it in the wrong place, or he gave it to the wrong player, or he invited a bit of pressure on himself a little bit too much. He can deal with a lot of pressure, but there's an extent, and there's always players have always got their tipping point in terms of how much you can invite onto yourself. And I feel like he was just getting a little bit too close to that. But that's being incredibly, incredibly picky about a fantastic footballer and also a fantastic bloke as well, Jack. I mean, hearing him speak about the football club. But put it this way, him and Danny are the first two off the bus taking pictures at an away game when you get there. And actually, when we went to Cardiff City, he spent a load of time with the Cardiff fans outside the game because obviously from there and was their captain for a little while. So he's a class act on and off the pitch, and we're delighted to have him. But yeah, as you say, I mean, I think you very much put him in the conversation with Barry Bannon in this League One season. I know I'm going to say it, aren't I? But I think he definitely outdoes him for me, having seen both of them play on the same pitch together once this season. But we'll have to see what the end of season stats reflect in that. I think he's immense in his position. He's up there with one of the best talents in League One. People called Barry Bannon a cheat code, but I think Marlon Pack is definitely up there with that as well. He is, an absolute little. Well, he's not a little. He's massive. I've stood next to the bloke. He's huge. He's a hero, mate, and we love him to bits at Pompey.
Yeah, and so you should, because I think he's impacting Pompey really well at the moment. I was going to say, finally, before we move on to part two, who has impressed you the most this season? Because you say Marlon Pack there. Marlon Pack, of course, is somebody that I think could easily be in that conversation. Like you say there, Dane Scarlett hasn't started badly since his loan move from Tottenham. I look at Colby Bishop, he's scoring goals as well. I think actually you've got a lot to choose from. I think your defence hasn't been bad either. Ogilvie, I really like your left back, Connor Ogilvie. I think he's a really good player. You can tell I'm not a Pompey fan, by the way, but I actually really enjoy watching Pompey actually develop and grow. And that probably is because I'm speaking to Tom all the time, but I do generally, I'm enjoying the Pompey journey at the moment, which I can say that, and it's going to definitely stay in. But when we play you in October, whatever it is, I won't be saying that. Who has impressed you the most? Because I think there's quite a few to choose from. I've named a few there, but you know your club better than I do. Who'd you go with?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I wrote down those three names. I'm very impressed that you've picked those out, because those, I'm afraid, I don't know if that's because I've just spoken to you about them a lot, or it's your due diligence and effort in working it out. It's probably the latter, knowing you, Jack. But
thanks.
Yeah, so that's all right. My three, well, the go-to answer is Marlon Pack, of course it is, for all the reasons that I've just mentioned. I wouldn't say I'm most impressed by him, because I thought he'd be immense anyway. So to answer the specific most impressed, obviously Dane Scarlett, much more of perhaps a story of a blossoming rather than most impressed in terms of his way into men's football. Well, men's football, League One football, especially, which
I said that to you as well. I said when you talk, because when it got announced, you said that Dane Scarlett had been announced. I sent you a voice note saying, on paper, Tottenham fans, they love him. But how many times have we seen it where, let's say, an Arsenal or a Manchester City or a Liverpool youngster goes out on loan to League One, and they either play a couple of games and then get recalled in January because they just weren't getting game time. They just couldn't adjust. I said to you, if he plays the way that he's being talked up to play in terms of potential, you're going to have a serious player on your hands. And you said, to be fair, yeah, it's all about time. And again, you've got to give these players and these youngsters time. But I mean, he's gone from strength to strength, and that's amazing for you and for Dane Scarlett on a personal level as well. And Tottenham, they'll be very happy with the fact that their youngster is playing some really good football and scoring goals in League One.
Yeah, I do a sort of, I think it's every couple of months that We Are Tottenham Fan TV. I don't know if you're not giving them a specific shout out, but they've asked me to keep an eye on him, and we can do a kind of loan watch show. And I'm only waxing lyrical about him at the minute. I know George really well, who's a Tottenham fan who does YouTube as well, and I've been chatting to him about him, and he's one of they call him the star boy. We call him the star boy, and we're looking after him as best we can. there's, I told you more of a story of blossoming. We're so lucky to have him from Spurs. And I think it's the way in which these Premier League clubs trust Danny and Nicky to develop their youth talent. I mean, it's a very well-known story, but Danny and Nicky took Emil Smith-Rowe under their wing for quite a while.
Huddersfield, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And look what he's gone on to do. And I tell you were mentioning it there. Actually, sometimes they do get recalled in January and they have a bit of a flop. I never like using the word flop because they're all professional footballers and they've all done really well to get where they are. But
that's not what we would ever do. So
exactly. We just sit here and talk about it, don't we? But then it's really easy to do from behind a microphone and behind a screen. But they do, we had Miguel Aziz from Arsenal who I think he's playing in Spain somewhere now, would you believe? It just didn't quite work. But this one is different. Dane Scarlett is different. He is, we're going to talk about League One in a minute and kind of, a little bit of a surprise package player-wise. I don't think anyone is surprised by the fact that Dane Scarlett's doing so well, but how quickly it's happened perhaps might take a few people aback a little bit. It's been coming since he's played really properly first couple of minutes against Cardiff City in the Cup. You could see his talent. You could see the way he can, if he's got the ball at his feet and he knows an attack's on, he will take his time with it, look around, see if there's actually anyone there with him to support him and provide the assist later on if that's what goes on to happen. And if there isn't, he will take a minute. He'll compose himself. He'll, take a sec just to look around and wait for everyone to catch up, pretty much. And if it is, then he'll just drive forward with the pace that he has. And I go back to the Peterborough one. The composure and the confidence and the bravery as well to do something like that. I know you know the clip that I'm talking about, Jack. It's when he receives the ball. It's Josh Koroma, actually, who also deserves a mention because he had a really good cameo last weekend, or weekend before. And he just thinking about when you were releasing this. There you go. Yeah. We would have played Burton Albion by now, wouldn't we? Hopefully we won that one by the time we're watching this.
Hopefully Plymouth. That's not going to be easy. I'll be honest.
Well, that's tomorrow, isn't it? So people might be watching this after the Plymouth game. I've just realised my dad's calling me. So in a minute, good morning, Andrew's calling everybody. So when we get on to part two, I'll give him a quick call and we can take a couple of seconds break if you don't mind, Jack. I'll just finish what I'm saying about Dane Scarlett because the way in which he conducts himself, his bravery is top notch, and long may it continue that he keeps banging them in. You mentioned, the original question was who's impressed you so far. I am going to go for Conor Ogilvie. His pace, constant and consistent defensive dominance and presence is something that isn't difficult to come by. And although he's got two incredible centre backs alongside him in the shape of Sean Raggett and Clark Robertson / Morrison, very experienced heads, very little gets past Conor Ogilvie without him coming out of a duel with the ball at his feet or having dealt with the situation to that end. So, he has impressed me the most alongside a cohort. I could have said literally 11 names there, or probably 15, actually, considering the depth we have on the bench. So, Conor Ogilvie for me, mate, is the one. There you go.
Finally, before we get, of course, Andrew, call Andrew. To finish up on part one and Pompey, and something is happening at Pompey, and to really sort of summarize what's happening at Pompey.
Yep.
What can this football club achieve this season? What can these players do? What can these managers do, or managers, manager, and I say management staff, what can they achieve this season? Because I look at that squad and I'm going to be honest, I know it's easy for me to say, and look at that league table as well. You look in such good shape. But again, we're only 7 games, and I bang on about it all the time. Every single episode I do at the moment, it's only 7 games. I do predictions every single week. I do roundups every single week. I do episodes with you and on my own, talk to myself. It's quite a sad life. And with episodes during midweek, I always say, whenever we're talking about the season so far, and I sort of talk up players and talk up clubs, it's only 7 games. It's only 7, and so much can change. We've seen sides at Ipswich a couple of years ago were top of the league. Come Christmas, they were nowhere near top of the league come the end of it. And that's Christmas. There's still, 2 months until we hit that point in the season this time around. What can this club achieve? Because so far, again, you can't argue. You're certainly on the right track. But so much can change in just 3-4 games.
2 words are very key there, so and far. Then when you put those together, you've got your answer, haven't you? But now Danny and Nicky have the boys they want. I believe the sky's genuinely the limit, to be honest with you, Jack. And I hope this analogy comes across in the right way. But every single one of those players that is currently a Portsmouth Football Club player has been tarnished by the Cowley brush. And what I mean by that is they have their fingerprints all over them. Joe Morrell will run through brick walls for Danny Cowley. So will Sean Raggett. So will Josh Griffiths, who was on loan at Lincoln. Who's worked under Danny and Nicky before, I should say. We knew we'd be put up against it when we played Peterborough. My view is that we came out with that with more than enough credit, although it was a tight one. Watching the game, I feel like we just about edged it. We actually didn't play at our best that day. And you could say that's because you're against a tougher opposition. Some of the football I've seen us put together, both at home and away from home this season, better than the stuff we put together against Borough. You could argue, doing enough to win a game is what good teams do, and is what teams that go on to be really successful in a league like League One do. We've also, I think this is really key as well, we've also found a number of different ways to win games. We aren't one-dimensional. There are lots of different ways that, Port Vale away was a different way to win compared to Bristol Rovers at Fratton, for example. And if we can keep doing it as we have done for the first 2 months or first month and a half, there is no doubt in my mind that promotion is achievable, but more than 40 games to go. If you consider all the cup games that we're going to have to play, I think it's 38, 39 match days to go. Some teams that haven't flourished in the way they might go on to do, Jack, you don't need to tell me, but we still have a lot of work to do. And that brings you on nicely to part 2, doesn't it? Which
will resume in a couple of minutes' time. This could be the end of the episode for you, watch us on Friday. If it is, then hope you have a really good weekend. If it's not, then we're still here. But either way, that's part 1. That is something is happening at Pompey. That's what I'm going to name it. I think that is a really good way of naming it, because I think Tom can agree. I can agree. Something is happening at Portsmouth. It's very, very special. Second in the league.
Finally.
Tom through there. I know. We spoke about it right at the start, at the end of last season and the start of the season. It needed to be a strong start for Pompey. And they certainly have delivered. Right. That's the end of part 1. Thanks for watching part 1. On to part 2 in just a second.